All right.
Yep.
It looks like
It looks like
we have a quorum.
yeah, it looks like just Dorothy Red and Dan Fellers is not on unless I'm not seeing them, because now Paul Arena is no longer on Economic Development Committee.
Right. Okay. All right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Economic Development Committee. Today's date is Monday, August 3rd, 2020, and the current time right now is 5:31. I'm going to start off with roll call. I'm just going to call each of you off individually. I myself, Jazz Billich. Dorothy Red is absent. John Butito.
Here.
Jenny Crosby.
Here.
Dan Fellers, absent. Bert Girl.
Here.
Tim Neighbors.
Here.
And Fred Westcott. Fred is here, but it looks like his mic is still off.
You need to unmute, Fred.
There you go.
There we go.
You got it now? All right.
Yep. Fred Westcott is here as well. Okay. Moving on, I'm looking to get a motion for the approval of minutes for the June 3rd, 2020 Economic Development Committee meeting.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Crosby, second by Mr. Westcott. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? No opposition. Moving on to the public comment section. I do see that I don't think that we have anybody that's scheduled for public comment, so I will be moving past that portion, and we'll move right along to our first matter of business, which is a resolution abating property taxes on property located at 2647 8th Street, Rockford, Illinois, specifically identified as property code numbers as the ones that are on the agenda. On that one, I'd like to actually thank Jack for joining us today for this meeting as well. This is in regards to the Est Wing project. I did bring this up during our caucus. Mr. Neighbors and Mr. Girl, during your guys' caucus, I don't know if it was brought up, so I'll give you a brief kind of rundown on this. This one is actually the part of the agreement that we had with doing the Est Wing deal was actually the city actually had an agreement that they were going to fall under an enterprise zone. We were going to be included in that tax abatement as well. We did discuss that at our board meeting that we had when we were discussing the $150,000 that we gave to Est Wing. This is technically kind of something that we were already involved with. However, there was a hiccup in, I guess, the way that it would have looked with the enterprise zone and them not falling directly into that tax abatement. We did agree to this tax abatement. We discussed it at least. I know that we actually agreed to the $150,000. It was assumed that we were already on board with the enterprise zone and having that tax abatement included in that as well. So this is kind of a cleanup just to make sure on our end that we're actually involved in it just the way that we had originally discussed it. I think that, Chris, I don't know, do you want to add more into that?
Sure, we should probably get a motion and second to get it on the floor officially. And then
I do apologize. Can I get a motion to motion by Ms. Crosby?
I second it to Neighbors.
Second by Mr. Neighbors. Thank you, Mr. Neighbors. So sorry, that was a brief description. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a tax abatement, a little different than some of the other ones because this is just for the increment of construction improved upon. The base year will be 2019. So what's before you is a 9-year tax abatement of the increment of improvements that they're doing. They're looking at putting about $11 million into this. It's the same overview project that we saw with the host fees earlier, sometime back. And what the abatement will be is the first 3 years will be at 100% of the increased value from the improvements that they're doing. This next 3 years, so year 4 through 6, will be at 75% of the increased value. So you're basically always taking the difference from 2019's your base to whatever it is going to be with the increased value. And then the last 3 years will be at 50% abatement for that. Based on what that is, it's in an enterprise zone, and actually the other three items that are coming up is the program we're talking about that Jazz alluded to earlier. We've been working with the city of Rockford on this for quite some time now. The overall abatement that you're really looking at from numbers from a county standpoint is around $16,000 over 9 years. So it's on average, it's only about $1,800 from the county's portion. So it's not a large portion, but the perk of this is that there are 3 other taxing bodies that have already approved this. The city of Rockford have already approved this. Rockford Public School District has already approved this, and the Rockford Park District has already approved it. So when you combine all those together, it's a nice abatement portion for what they're doing at Estwing. And then we have Jack Ryan from Estwing here, and if maybe he would want to touch base if you have questions or further, or actually Carl from the city of Rockford as well is here, who's been working on this project too, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, actually, Carl, if you want to, Carl or Jack, if you guys want to put in some input, how about Carl? We'll start with Carl if you want to put in some input on this project as far as this goes. I do believe most of the members are aware of the dynamics, but if there's anything else you wanted to add in.
Certainly, maybe just to clarify some of your comments, Chair, and thank you for the invitation and thank you for allowing me to speak on your committee. As we were working the Estwing deal and looking at the capital stack to get them to support their investment on 8th Street here in Rockford, we were looking at the abatement policy at the same time that we were discussing changing the policy for the overall enterprise zone, which is on your agendas later this evening. So the reason that we're asking this to be a case by case is because we came into agreement in principle on this abatement schedule and anticipated and hoped that we would have these IGAs approved prior to the Estwing deal being closed. And so it's just the difference in those 2 timeframes that we're asking for this to be a case by case.
All right, Mr. Jack, Mr. Ryan, would you like to add anything in, buddy?
Yeah, no, just Jack. No, we appreciate everybody's helping us along, and the improvements are pretty well being done. So we sunk a lot of money into this property, and we appreciate you guys giving this abatement some consideration.
Okay. Anybody from the committee would like to say anything? All right, with that, I'm going to move forward to all those in favor for approving the resolution abating property taxes on property located at 2647 8th Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. With that, we will be moving. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the input, Mr. Franzen and Mr. Ryan. With that, we're going to move on to resolution authorizing execution. And actually, let me ask for a clarification. Chris, can we actually group, because all 3 of the next ones are actually in regards to the enterprise zone. Can we group those together, or do we want to approve them individually?
I may defer to our state's attorney on that. I mean, you could always make a motion to take them all at once, I would think, but we just did them as individual things, individual items, which is how Rockford had done them and so forth. But you could, seeing that they're the exact same, little tweaks here and there, but pretty much the exact same thing. I don't see a reason why you couldn't move them together.
I think you could discuss them all together. The motion I would
just. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, I didn't mean like necessarily combine them, just, vote on them all at the same time kind of thing. Yeah, could I get the state's attorney on that one?
I think you could, with a motion, bring them all together, but I would prefer that when you vote on them, you vote on them individually. But to discuss them, okay, you could bring a motion, yeah.
Okay, to discuss on them, I'll bring them all together. There is very minor differences between each one, and it is all to deal with the enterprise zone. So can I get a motion to bring items F, G, and H, the resolution authorizing an execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Rockford in regards to the enterprise zone. I got a motion by Ms. Crosby. Can I get a second?
Second by Tim Neighbors.
Second by Mr. Neighbors. And Chris, can you give us a brief rundown on this one? You worked pretty close on this one, so.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is essentially the exact same schedule what we just did for Estwing. This is a tax abatement program we've been working on with the city of Rockford. The goal of the program is obviously to increase the tax abatement. The focus on this from the county's perspective is there's three focal areas: industrial companies, knowledge-based companies, and logistic companies. And those are defined within the agreements. We did remove out a little bit of language in the river district. We removed out, there's potential for residential subdivisions or residential developments, I should say, as part of the mixed use. So we did remove that part of the language out. And then also we removed out for the River Edge Development Zone and the Rockford Enterprise Zone number 1, retail sales. Those were two areas that with further discussion with county administration and so forth, that was an area the county didn't feel like we should get into subsidizing some of the retail sales from past experience and the residential developments. There's reporting structure in here with the zone administrator to attend the Economic Development Committee once a year or upon request, just to give a status update of how the program's running, how many they've done, kind of what they see and so forth. We have a 10-year sunset clause on it. So after 10 years, the program will automatically expire. However, if the program's running successfully, it can be extended onwards, but that would have to come back to the county board for approval. And then there is a termination clause as well in there that if either party is dissatisfied with how it's running within 30 days of written notice, it can cease to exist. There's 3 areas. There's 2 levels. Rockford did a nice job on breaking this out based on investment level in the 3 different enterprise zones and 2 different enterprise zones in the River Edge redevelopment zone. All of them have a $500,000 investment to start off and job creation associated with that, so that the city could then go through and approve them if these jobs met it. So level 1 would be a 3-year 100% tax abatement of the increment only. And then a level 2 would be a $2.5 million of investment. And then job creation would be dependent on the industry that it's going. And that would be a 9-year abatement. First 3, 100%, second 3 years, 75%, and the last 3 would be 50%. Which is what we did just now approve for Estwing. In a nutshell, that's kind of what's before you. In effect, you would transfer the authority from county board to city of Rockford to approve these based on this criteria, which can try to increase the development in these specifically geographic specific areas, which are programs that the state had oversees and increases.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franzen. I did want to add in, Chris, we're also discussing currently that there is an enterprise zone agreement between Loves Park and McChesney Park, and we're actually looking into making an enterprise zone agreement to where the county would be involved with that as well. So that way it kind of brings all the larger municipalities within our area together. It would be open to obviously see if we can have all the municipalities in some kind of agreement and some kind of zones where it's going to benefit them to bringing more businesses into our area. So I just want to let you guys know that as far as future, if it comes up, that's what it's going to look like. Other than that, Carl, Mr. Franzen, would you like to add anything into that as well?
No, I think, thank you again, Chair. I think Chris did a really good job of laying out the structure of this. And this is meant to provide some consistency across our zones and make these geographic more competitive with from between Wisconsin and other places that we compete with. I think that we've already seen after coming into agreements in principle with the county and the school district and the park district, and their consideration of similar IGAs will be coming after your vote tonight. I think that the projects that we've been working, we see that the increased value that this is providing per capital stack is having the impact that we're looking for. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the city perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Franzen. I wanted to actually say a special thank you to also the state's attorney's office for looking at it. They had to go through a couple different eyes to make sure that everything was great, and thank you guys for getting it all done for us. I'd like to move on to the board. Does the committee have any questions or concerns or discussion in regards to this? Go ahead, Mr. Bisuda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Franzen may have answered the question, but these tax abatements, all three of them, are going to also extend to the school district, park district, and all of them. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's our intention. We believe we have agreements in principle from them on this schedule. We developed this schedule in conversations with all four of the taxing bodies together. So there may be individual language, for example, the county putting the sunset clause on it and removing some the residential, the mixed use residential and the river edge. But this in its substantial form, we anticipate being adopted within the next 60 to 90 days.
Mr. Crosby, you had your hand up. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bisuda. Did you want to follow up first? I apologize.
Yeah, just one more question, please. Under I guess is section I, number 3, the agreement to abate, the language. I just want to make sure I understood this. The last sentence says the county property tax abatement shall not extend to commercial companies. Is that what you're referring to as retail then? Because commercial could refer to industrial or rental, or I'm just curious about that section.
Mr. Dornbush, you want to answer that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Butita, that is retail sales was under the commercial. So that's why it's if you look in the whole packet we sent out, we included Rockford's approved one that we reference, but the state's attorney's office put that in there to remove out that aspect of it because it included the retail sales.
And Ms. Crosby?
Just a quick question. So I just want to be clear. Our commitment financially is, I think you said 16 or is it $1,800 a year for the 10 years, correct?
No.
That was
Okay.
actually for the last item that we just voted on. That's in particularly towards Estwing. Yeah.
Okay, so what is this? How much are we committing
This is
on
for,
this?
this is the enterprise zone. Basically, it's a way to to get involved with the other municipal partners as far as this park district, the city of Rockford, and the Rockford School District as well, which are all a part of this program, which is to give a tax abatement that's going to help entice the businesses, obviously, to come to our area. As per our, I believe, not our last committee meeting, but the one before that, the county itself doesn't have an actual set tax abatement program, and we follow certain guidelines that we've had before, but this is something that the city's worked on and is including us in it as well.
Thank you. Very good.
Mr. Dornbush, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Crosby, this isn't for a specific abatement. This is a general program that the city can run and operate on behalf of the county's portion of taxes for the increment for if they have a business like Estwing coming through, they could extend these abatement schedules to them without having to seek. So it's a general overview of a program, not a specific abatement to a company right now.
Mr. Earl, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Just curious on letter number F, where is zone number 1? The other two are pretty specific.
Mr. Dornbush, you want to, actually, Mr. Franzen, you want to explain to him where zone number 1 is?
Thank you.
Certainly. And happy to provide a map to all committee members to lay these out. I will note that all three areas are mutually exclusive of each other, so there's no overlap of the three. Enterprise Zone number 1 covers most of the industrial core of the city. So it extends all the way up from North Rock, where the old Bonton facility and sports core 1 is, comes down North Main over Auburn Street, covers in down Kishwaukee and Harrison, and covers much of the airport and our Global Trade Park TIFs, as well as the East Rock facility. I will note in these resolutions here lay out the legal descriptions that each zone participates in. We are initiating a process where we are beginning an application to the state of Illinois to amend some of these boundaries to because of some annexations and other opportunities that we see. We certainly will provide those modifications as approved to the board for consideration to amend this agreement.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have anybody else? Any other comments? Mr. McDonald.
I have a question.
I'll go to Mr. McDonald and I'll get to you next right after that, Ms. Red. And actually also to note, please, Mr. Dornbush, Ms. Red has joined the meeting. I apologize for forgetting that part. I apologize, Ms. Red. I'm going to go to Mr. McDonald and then you after that, okay?
Chairman Village, I am not on your committee. If you prefer Ms. Red to go first, I completely understand and respect that.
Go ahead, Keith.
Okay. A couple questions I have just to follow up is logistics, learning, and industrial are the only three types of businesses that it applies to. Is that accurate?
Yes, I do believe so. It's more towards like the commercial businesses as far as the industrial and so on. Mr. Dornbush, you want to expand on that?
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. The industrial companies are defined within their manufacturing or assembly of goods that take place. The knowledge-based companies are defined as enterprises that are research-oriented and they require a highly skilled workforce, such as biotechnological, medical, healthcare, electronics, data information, technology, and/or professional services, such as engineering, architecture, finance, and law. And logistics are warehousing, distribution businesses that engage in storage, sorting, and packaging of goods and transfer of products from one point to another. Mr. Franzen may be able to expand a little bit more on that, but those are the definitions that were laid out in the.
I think you covered what my question was, and I appreciate that. The other thing, I spoke with Mr. Dornbush late last week about this. He said this abatement is only covering in the incremental. It won't affect the current tax rate. It only affects the incremental going forward. My question to that is, I would assume some of these properties are yet to be developed. Does that mean they would still be zoned agricultural or something like to that effect? And then somebody's going to build a 100,000 square foot building on there and greatly dramatically increase the value of the property. And we'd lose out on that big increment. Is that a likely scenario to go from ag into an industrial type zoning?
Mr. Dornbush.
Chairman, thank you. I think most of Rockford's already, and Mr. Franzen, maybe you can correct me, I think most of Rockford's enterprise zones are already mostly developed. So I don't think there's probably much agricultural land. As we had touched base with, if we extend the same program to the Loves Park and McChesney Park enterprise zone that they have one that's a joint one. That might be something where you go from essentially vacant land to a building with quite a high increased value.
Okay, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. I think it's a great thing. I think we need to encourage growth in building. It concerns me slightly that we're potentially, the county's looking at giving up some control over our future revenue. But at the same time, I understand we need to do something to incentivize people as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And just to add in for a little bit more clarification, as Mr. Dornbush mentioned earlier, we did look back, and when the state's attorney's office looked at all these agreements, we actually did obviously remove certain language as far as retail, because the county hasn't ever been a part of abating that in that kind of sense. So we try to make sure that we clean it up and made it with that aligns with what the county's been doing for businesses and in regards to tax abatements over the years. I did have Ms. Red after you. So Ms. Red, did you have any concerns?
Thank you, Chairman. I was a little late getting on. I'm sorry. I forgot the meeting. I didn't hear you mention anything about the west side. What are we doing here?
So I don't know if I don't know if you were present with Bert Girl's question in regards to Zone 1. That one is the one that actually does extend to the west side in the Auburn area, as well as the industrial areas all along the Main Street corridor. I'm not sure exactly which pockets. Mr. Franzen did say that he would send us a map in that regards. However, obviously it may change due to annexation or growth of the area within the city of Rockford and their possible enterprise zone addition to obviously attract more businesses to that area. Mr. Franzen, do you want to add anything to that?
Certainly, yes. And once again, I will follow up with specific maps so that all committee members zones fall. It is important to note the enterprise zone redevelopment zones, while similar state authorized economic development tools, there are some differences. So the cities about 4 years ago modified the boundaries and really focused the River Edge redevelopment zone around the downtown to utilize that 25% historic tax credit from the state level to be stacked onto the 20% historic tax credit to take advantage for those redevelopment opportunities. Therefore, the enterprise zone number 1 really covers the vast majority of industrial properties in our core community. And so from Barbara Coleman over to Springville Corners, over to the Lowe's industrial or the Lowe's distribution center, and south to where the Love's truck stop is being built. I will note to the previous question in regards to Greenfield, much of the enterprise zone number 1 Greenfield area that exists is already in a TIF, and any property that is in a TIF takes precedence over any abatement, and so the abatement is not eligible. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Mr. Franzen. Sorry, my computer got out of the internet and came back on, so I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Franzen. Does that answer your question, Ms. Red?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns from the board? All right, with that, I'm looking for the approval of, we're going to go individually. Item F, looking for all those in favor of item F.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, with no opposition, that passed unanimously. Moving on to item G. All those in favor of item G?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, that passed unanimously. And moving on to item H, which is the final resolution authorizing the execution of the intergovernmental agreement in regards to the enterprise zone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously as well, Mr. Dornbush. Moving on to the next matter of business, which is other matters. If anyone has anything else they'd like to bring up. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Before we make the motion to adjourn, I do want to, Jack, Nestwing guys, Carl, thank you guys so much for working with us on these projects and everything like that. And thank you guys so much for allowing us to be a part of your guys' project as well. Thank you for being here on our Zoom meeting.
No, yeah, thank you very much we wanted to thank you. So thanks for giving us that time.
All right. Again, sorry, going back to the motion for adjournment, I did see Ms. Crosby actually motioned. And what was the second?
Second. So Neighbors.
Neighbors and Mr. Girl second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You guys have a wonderful day.